morning, everybody. I wanted to take the opportunity to make this quick video about something I've been studying recently called internal family systems. And IFS is this modality of self-therapy that you use to heal certain parts of you. It's almost like, I guess it's similar to a kind of a family constellation thing or an NLP parts technique, and you work with protectors and you work with exiles, and you basically you're trying to resolve the internal conflicts that are going on within you through this kind of what would you call it, this platform, this kind of interface of starting a dialogue between each of the different parts. I've been working with this for years actually, and I find it really effective, but there's different ways that you can approach it and different things that you can do within that kind of framework. And one of the things that I was thinking about today is that I just wanted to share a little bit of this insight, because I thought it was a useful way to frame this and a useful way to think about it. Is that when you have these parts in conflict, I've been trying to find a way to visualize this for a while, how to construct a kind of a visual metaphor for how this seems to work, and put it down onto paper. But actually it's almost like these parts are orbiting each other. So you have these two parts that are in conflict. Usually it's something like when you feel this kind of dissatisfaction with yourself or this anger with yourself, and you have this one that is the intimidator, and then you have this other one over here that is generally kind of the victim, and one of them is persecuting the other one, or some kind of arrangement like that. And then what you often have is another one orbiting these two that is looking on with maybe some kind of shock or sadness or something like that. And for me, what I discovered when I was doing some of this with myself yesterday was that there was a part that was looking at these two with a kind of a sadness and a terror and a horror almost. And then from there was a fourth part that was orbiting outside of that with a kind of a shock, a sense of, wow, can this really be happening? This is really strange. And you can go, it's almost like its own solar system, you know. It can go up and up in layers, like its own miniature solar system or its own miniature constellation, where these parts are orbiting each other, and each layer and each layer and each layer gets slightly fainter, slightly more distant as your consciousness and awareness needs to kind of expand out to reach those parts. But what I was thinking about, or what I noticed, is that these parts are orbiting each other, and this is kind of like a two-dimensional reality. You know, they're not going anywhere. They don't have a kind of trajectory. But once you get out farther enough, you begin to identify with the thing that they are actually orbiting themselves, which is akin to the sun. So you can imagine the sun is right there in the middle, and these dissociated parts are orbiting themselves and causing a right mess, like a right lot of havoc out there on their own. But their constellation, in the same way that our little Earth and Moon and our little planetary thing is orbiting the sun, and the sun itself is not operating on a two-dimensional trajectory. The sun itself is also flying through space and time, but it's on a different path. It's on a different course. And as you stop identifying with the smaller orbiting parts and getting sucked into the gravity of that constellation, you begin to identify with the sun itself, and the sun is on a completely different trajectory, and these orbiting parts orbiting themselves are actually orbiting as well the sun in this kind of heliocentric, I think it's heliocentric, or is that the flat one? I can't remember. I think it's heliocentric model of the universe, where the sun is actually traveling forwards and these other parts are spiraling. They're orbiting themselves, but they're spiraling around the sun. And I just began to see that quite clearly in myself, that you come out of the little constellation, or the kind of the miniature solar system, and then you begin to identify with the kind of the larger model of the sun, and it struck me as related to orienting yourself towards something. It's like this has been a big thing for me recently, is looking for the kind of meaning or the orientation towards something that is going to make inevitable suffering and inevitable pain in life bearable and tolerable. And this was, it was quite a big recognition that if you're disoriented, if you're not oriented towards something, you're disoriented, and you're really just living in 2 dimensions, just going around in circles. But if you're oriented towards something, you add an extra dimension to the experience, where you start to move in a spiral, in a trajectory, because you're not just spinning around in circles, you're not just in 2 dimensions, you're actually living in 3 dimensions, because you're oriented towards something that's meaningful to you. And that makes the inevitable spins and the waves of the spins as you're going around are kind of tolerable, because you've got a trajectory as well, and meaningful as well somehow. That's about as far as this thought stream goes for now, and I think that's more or less it. So thanks for listening. I'm going to try to make a series of shorter videos, because I've noticed that I can go on at some length, and also it's a nightmare to edit. But thanks again for listening, and I'll see you soon.